Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Once Upon a Time in PatORG, the PatORG podcast where we will be speaking with the All Stars that have been voted out from this awesome All Stars season. I am one of your hosts, Nico, and with me to host is Floyd. How you doing, Floyd?
Always wonderful. How are you?
Yes, doing well, and happy to be here with our guest. Unfortunately, we're here under the circumstances that we are, but it's always nice to be speaking with you. So this is the second person voted out. It's O. How's it going, O?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How are you?
Yes, so it has been a few days since you were voted out. Uh, what's what's kind of like the feelings just straight off the bat? Like how
Uh,
how have things evolved over the past few days?
yeah, I mean, I've gotten over it for the most part. I was kind of upset by it for a little while. But I mean, I got over it surprisingly quickly. Honestly, like I think it probably is better to be out early than it is. Like I think it would have hit harder if I had more longevity in the game and still went out pre-jury. Like that's the worst. Like I feel like I can sit with it better since I didn't have as much time that I'd put into it. I guess I was only there for I think 6 days.
Yeah, that's understandable. I mean, as you say, like sometimes having it like maybe dangled a bit more in front of you to feel like you had a real shot and then taken away can just kind of sting all that more. So it feels like there was
Yeah.
kind of little wiggle room, unfortunately. But coming into the season, obviously, you know it's all stars. What were you kind of expecting as far as potential cast people? Was there anyone that you had on your mind that you were going to work with, weren't going to work with?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really know what exactly to expect in terms of casting. But I mean, I kind of at the same time, like I figured we'd just see a lot of people who, made an impact. The only person I was genuinely surprised wasn't there was Alvaro, just because of how active he was afterward. I'd assume that was probably just because he maybe he probably said no. But yeah, in terms of who I wanted to work with, I mean, like I said, I had this idea. I wanted to kind of take after some of the All-Star seasons from the show in that I wanted to find the people who seemed like they, I guess to put it in a less nice way, weren't really All-Stars, or at the very least less well known. And I wanted to work with them because I felt like they would have the smallest target on their back. So I was actually excited when I was on a tribe with Royals and Lily. They were two that I feel like didn't really have as much of names for themselves. Like it was a lot of more modern people, and they were the ones I wanted to work with. But I obviously, as we'll get into, I couldn't get anywhere with either of them, particularly Royals. But that was my idea. I didn't want to. I wanted to kind of distance myself from the people who were more over the top and bigger players because I knew they would be targets, and I just wanted to not be a part of that at all. Which obviously, I think that plan kind of backfired in some ways. I was a little too under, but that was kind of my I guess view going in. I didn't want to be with the big players.
I think that's fair
So,
enough. I mean, yeah, just
yeah.
I'll let you go, Floyd.
Oh, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I
You're
think
more better than I am. Don't worry.
looking at it, I could understand exactly your mindset. I think I probably would have thought similarly, because I think if you manage, if like you just kind of sit comfortably within that tribe, there are some bigger names that might have potentially been higher, bigger targets. But I think they kind of did the reverse strategy where they've kind of the bigger names kind of bar you got together, and just kind of got really tight in that sense. Um, I've lost my train of thought, so I'm going to hand over to you, Floyd.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go kind of based off that a little bit. What were the first few days like? Were there people that you wanted to connect with that you didn't expect to connect with, or were there other people that you thought you might work with, but you decided not to, to pay no mind to those people?
Yeah, I mean, I tried to connect to really everybody, but I didn't want to be too fast with it. So like I think there were very few people that I actually DM'd first. Like I think I sought out Lily and DM'd her. Royals DM'd me right away. But I guess overall, like the people I wanted to work with, like I said, I wanted to kind of get in with Royal. I figured they might have a bond. Like I guess ideally in the future, I would have liked to maybe try to form like a group of three there if I could. Another person I was someone I didn't have my eye on was Henry, but he was like the only person that like I even sort of connected with, I think, in the beginning. So I didn't really want to be working with Henry as I made it. I think I made that pretty clear in my confessionals, but like at the same time, he was the only one I was really feeling at all out of everyone I talked to. He was the only one I got anywhere with, mostly because we already knew each other. So Henry was really the only person that I think I really clicked with out of that whole tribe. I talked to everybody as much as I could. I probably talked to EJ the least, just because he was kind of quiet. He never came to me. Like I just got the sense that he didn't want to really talk to me because he never came to me, and then I eventually messaged him, and it didn't really go anywhere. So EJ was just kind of a lost cause. That's why he was one of the people that I was thinking of wanting to vote out, but obviously I didn't really have much power.
Yeah, that's kind of sucks in a sense. I mean, I think your strategy made sense, and it was just unfortunate the way things ultimately went. Um, you mentioned that the conversations weren't necessarily going anywhere. Was it just that things weren't flowing, or what was kind of the vibe that made you get that impression?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really put very many screenshots, I guess, but it's just hard to say. Just like when you're talking to someone, you either click or you don't.
Mhm.
And in pretty much every conversation I had, almost when I was trying to get to know people, I didn't click, and I don't know whose fault that was. That could be me because I have a hard time, connecting with people. But it just, it was just very kind of dry. It was like, oh, hi, how's your day? My day is good. I like to do this. Oh, that's cool. I like it was just like that, like nonstop with pretty much everyone. Like almost, it was so kind of dry at times. It felt like almost I was talking to the same person, no matter who I spoke to. Obviously, with a few minor exceptions, but overall, like, they all kind of sounded the same. And then Shay, of course, she was really nice, but I think that Shay is just naturally charismatic, and I could kind of tell even with Shay, I wasn't really getting anywhere, and obviously that ended up being true looking back. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I think that's about it, honestly, in terms of what that was like. The talks didn't go anywhere. I don't know how else to put it.
That's completely fair enough. Did you kind of so obviously this is your second time playing. Was that kind of like what was your impression like comparing this with the first time? Was that a similar way things started off at the beginning uh, on your first tribe? Because obviously we do see like sort of the decimation of Montu and its like original members as like the first few people to go out. So I think you had a bit more maybe breathing room there potentially. What do you kind of put like this sort of difference down to?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think part of it was, I had Lindsay who actively got it in her head that she wanted to work with me from the start, which is sort of the opposite of what happened. Like this time, I feel like this time we had people who from the start didn't want to work with me. Maybe not, but that's kind of what it looked like from the reading I did and what I heard. And also, of course, we were on smaller tribes. That was a tribe of five, and I think everyone just got a little closer because there were less people there, and of course, we kept winning. And then, of course, after the swap, I got swapped somewhere with Lindsay. I had Lindsay on my side, who I was very close to, and just really throughout the entire season, I had people that I had connections with, whether they were social or strategic. And this season, I just didn't have that from the beginning, and it was really off-putting and just made it really tough.
So you spoke about in your confessional that you had a hard time hitting your stride, and I know you talked about like just how hard it was to connect with people. You it's kind of like a broken train. Is that sort of why you felt like you couldn't hit your stride?
Yeah, I think so. And also, I just in the time that this was happening, I was feeling a little out of it. I don't know if there's really any reason for it. It was just I was just kind of in a slump emotional wise, so that kind of didn't help me. Um, I have a few other things. I do have my own org I'm hosting. I was working on driver's ed as well. I just had some other things going on that I think contributed to me being kind of off. But overall, I mean, really, I do think just the biggest thing was just, yeah, again, I wasn't really making any social connections, and part of that was me, I think, and another part was just the fact that I think those people weren't really reciprocating, and they also obviously had their own alliances going on that I didn't know about, and I just had a total incorrect read on the tribe, and I don't really think I'm at fault for that though, because it's an org, you can't see anything. Like I had no idea that people were strategizing because all the signs pointed to this just being a very quiet and not into the game type tribe. We were people were did not seem very into the challenges. that scavenger hunt was a disaster. I was the best performer in the first immunity challenge, and I intentionally didn't put 100% effort into that. And they also were very quiet in the tribe chat. And when I talked to them, they didn't really reciprocate. So that was just how I thought the tribe was. And again, if I somehow knew, which I don't think there was any way that I could have, but if I somehow knew there were people strategizing and making alliances and doing all this that I didn't know about, I obviously would have done things very differently. Because the whole time I was concerned that I was being too, over the radar or over the top when really I wasn't doing enough.
Yeah,
That must
that's
be frustrating too to know that you felt one way, but the perception of you was completely different.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I just echo that. I mean, as you say, like all the signs were kind of pointing towards people just kind of not being as active. I mean, as you say, even just down to the challenge, like the scavenger hunt, a lot of people just kind of didn't put in that much effort, and so it does get off this impression that people just aren't really like going hard this time potentially. So, what was that like? Obviously, you mentioned that you kind of held things back challenge wise. But once you kind of see the impression of like your tribe, like maybe, like, did you get the impression you were going to lose that challenge, or
The scavenger hunt
yeah,
or the first one?
or I
The
guess it,
scavenger hunt, yeah.
feel free to talk about both. That's but well, the first challenge was remind me. It was the trivia, was it?
It was trivia. Yeah, trivia.
Right. Yeah, and you guys obviously managed to be safe that time. Another thing that I just thought of is so obviously Royals goes away. I think that first episode, and as part of the Hollywood sign twist, were there any sort of like things that went in your mind that you thought might have, uh, come from that?
Uh, as in do you mean like things that happened at the Hollywood sign that I didn't know about, or just like my thoughts on that twist?
Yeah, like speculation about what it could have involved, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I had a feeling. Well, because here's the thing. Pat said at the very beginning of the season that he felt that he thought this was going to be or that this twist was or the this season was going to have the biggest twist ever. So I was thinking, there's no way this is just a three-person exile. Like there's got to be something more there. And when Royals came back and said that they just chose something to happen at Tribal Council, and did a puzzle, like I was like, well, there's got to be more to that. And could you tell me, because I didn't look into that very much, but what was the idol involved with, or the idol hunt, was that involved in the Hollywood sign, or was that totally different?
No,
Because I listened to Caleb's podcast and I didn't know anything about the idol hunt.
yeah, it was very different. It was a lot of commands that were floating around to kind of get you started for a word hunt, and that would be sort of where you'd end up doing the 100 things you needed to
Okay.
do to get it. So it wasn't it wasn't the Hollywood sign. People were doing it in their spam channels.
Okay. So was Royals totally transparent about that when he said that it was they just they did a puzzle and then selected a something strange to happen at Tribal?
Yeah,
I
it's
think that's right.
yeah, and we haven't seen really anything to compare it to really because the
Yeah.
other two people to have gone so far have not been able to complete the challenge. Um,
Oh, okay.
Actually, I didn't double check if they ultimately did in the most recent round, but I remember I think Talia and Jaden were just not as keen as doing it. But I haven't seen the latest. Have you got any knowledge on that, Floyd?
No, I haven't seen anything since then either. I'm looking at it now, and it still looks like that nobody really wants to sit there and do it.
Huh.
Right. Okay. So there you go.
Okay. Huh.
See, that was the
Then
thing.
I
I've
Is
still
heard
wonder what
rumors.
Pat was talking about.
well, that's what
There
we've
must be
still got to
more to come.
figure out, I suppose. So obviously the round that you guys do go to tribal, it was the uh, round that Henry ends up going to Exile or the Hollywood sign. Were you worried about that at that point?
At that point, I was a little worried, but not nearly as much as I should have been. Like when that happened, I saw that because again, I still felt like I was kind of one of the people who was the most engaged on that tribe. So when that happened, I didn't think like, oh man, my game's over or I'm in trouble. I was just like, well, this is going to be even harder because there's the one person I talked to that I connected with, and now he's gone. But again, I didn't realize all that was going on. So I honestly thought that I was going to be safe. I figured that people would have to have their sights set elsewhere because I hadn't really done much. And also, again, I'm pretty sure I was the best performer in both of the challenges that we did. I think I got the most items of anyone in that scavenger hunt or close to it. Obviously, I had the best score in trivia. But yeah, Henry getting sent away. I mean, honestly, my first thought was, "Oh, cool! I'll be able to hear about that when he's back." So I guess that kind of shows how off my perception was.
Can you talk to you spoke a lot in your confessionals about how you felt like it was a kind of like a mixed business bag. You felt all over the place. Is there something that was driving you that way?
I'm loving the back references. I gotta
I'm
say.
doing it on purpose, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'm free to catch on that one.
Yeah. Well, I heard you say broken train, and I was like, well, okay. Yeah. Uh. Yeah. I mean, really, I guess that kind of just also speaks to how I wasn't in the best mental state throughout the game. I felt like I was all over the place in my confessional because I kept catching myself kind of contradicting myself, and like it was like one moment I would be feeling terrible, like at one point I almost sent a message about how I practically wanted to quit, but then I immediately changed my mind about that. Like I just kind of was catching myself being kind of all over the place emotionally, and maybe even if that didn't show as much in my confessional as I felt like it did. That was kind of my feeling. So maybe that's why I was kind of bringing that up. Um, I don't know, and I just was catching myself being contradictory. I wanted to be, I would say I want to be under the radar and be cool and chill, and then I was like panicked the entire game. So I don't know.
Do you think that came across to people though? Like, do you think you were pretty open in your confessionals about just not feeling like you were in the right place and you weren't your mind kind of seemed like it was off and there's no Beck references here, but do you feel sort of like that might have leaked out to somebody or what do you think made you feel that way?
I don't know. Like, I don't think so, because I think more so, from what I know, it seems like more so the reason I got targeted is because it was just wrong place, wrong time, and on top of that, I didn't do anything to really save myself. I don't think it really came off to other people, but maybe it did. Maybe I don't realize that, but I mean, I was very different when I was talking to other people as opposed to how I was in my confessional and in my thoughts. Like I kind of kept it cool for the most part. The only time and again, this again speaks to my downfall, but the only time I even opened up about how I was feeling was to Daniel on the final day, during tribal. And I think I might have spoken to Henry a little bit early on about like how inactive this tribe is. But Daniel was the only person I really even opened up to about that. So, and I don't think I really let on that I was panicking, but maybe I did. Maybe that is part of why I became the target. I don't know.
I think it was just an element of this was like a sort of actually like one of the faster tribes to establish like alliances. So we had a core of sort of Shay, Daniel, um, Nelson, and I've got Henry. So I think they're the main four that have kind of been the centre of a lot of things. And they tacked on Lily at one point for a five. There was a separate alliance without Henry that had both Lily and EJ and Royals, I think. So unfortunately, you were just one of the people that, for whatever reason, was just left out of alliances. So I can understand why it would have felt that things were being quite slow, because from what you're seeing, they are. But it seems like behind the scenes, some people were managing to kind of go that bit further. So that's why I think ultimately when sort of tribal does happen, I think a lot of what you're saying was like good stuff from what I saw from people in confessionals. It just seemed unfortunately like things had been set up already and it might have been a bit too little too late. Um, at what point did
Yeah,
you
I guess so.
feel like you potentially were like, obviously you were saying at the point that Henry was set away you thought it was going to be harder, but at what point did you get the impression it was like, okay, no, this actually really isn't good?
I mean, it was really just as I was, and again, again, this is my own lack of perception because I totally wholly trusted Daniel when I shouldn't have. Not that it would have changed anything. I think my fate was sealed, but I was more so, again, you said I was, or I was thinking it was going to be a 4-3 vote on me. And well, first I thought it was going to be a 4-3 vote on somebody, and it wasn't going to, and it was going to be like I was going to be blindsided. And then after I continued to talk to people, and I tried to ask Lily about what was going on, and she immediately just shut down, which is bad gameplay, by the way. I don't know why she did that, but but she just ignored me after I asked her about like working together and voting. And then at that point, I was like, okay, they're going to be voting for me. But I was like, well, I had no idea what was going on with Royals. But again, Royals, I thought he was so inactive. And he had told me that he wanted to work with me. So I was like, okay, well, maybe Royals can be a vote in my pocket. I can talk to him whenever he's here and get his vote in. So to me, the way I saw that, I thought that I had Daniel and Nelson voting with me, and Royals was a swing. So I wasn't sure which way Royals went. But by the time a tribal was happening, and then especially when it got down to Lily and me, I was like, well, I mean, there's no way that EJ and Shay and all those people that I didn't talk to magically just voted with me. So when it was me and Lily, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm done. Which is like the very last moment. So I would consider myself blindsided still, but yeah.
So just before that, you asked the soul-sucking jerk that is Carl bot. Did he give you a false sense of security? Because he gave you like a 4 out of 10 prediction on you going, which is 40% and not too terrible, but
I mean, I agreed with him, or somewhere around there. That's kind of what I was feeling, or maybe like 40 or 50%. But no, I mean, all joking aside, Carl is just a bot after all. So I don't think it gave me any sort of security, unless you would count just the comfort of being able to pretend like I'm talking to somebody. It's kind of like it's kind of like Wilson in Castaway. It's even if it's not alive, like oddly enough, talking to a bot like that, and making up the responses and whatnot. It's slightly therapeutic when you're out there. Like I did it especially a lot during my first season, because it was kind of a way to, again, one of the things with Survivor is that it can kind of wear on you when you can't trust anybody you're talking to.
right.
So that's kind of the significance of Carl, and just purely for comedy's sake, because it's fun and silly. But no, I don't think that I got I don't think that actually changed my perception very much, because that what he said was about that was about the amount of the chance of survival I thought I had.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, you like I guess 3 out of 7 is about 42%, so 40% give or take. That's pretty much it. So obviously you also had the sort of Total Drama Island exit. So I suppose that must have made like knowing where people were at all the more confusing in a sense, because you didn't get to see like the votes come in traditionally. What were your thoughts at that point where you saw your name? Did you still think that it probably came down to a 4-3 at that point?
Yes, until Daniel apologized, and then I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, okay, this was a 6-1, wasn't it? And yeah, so that sucked. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wasn't really sure what happened, but I knew that, like, obviously a lot of people had voted for me, and I figured there was definitely something going on that I didn't know about. And I wasn't really sure if Daniel had been with me, but when Daniel apologized, it all kind of came into place, that I was like, oh yeah, these people just probably had some kind of syndicate against me, didn't they? And that turned out to be the case.
So after a couple days, how are you feeling overall? Like, how do you look back at this, and you look at your tribe, and you wonder, how are they going to be able to move forward? Are they a time bomb? How are you feeling? Like, do you feel okay with your game afterwards? Or I know that's like 6 questions, but
Yeah. Um, I mean, well, with that tribe, yeah, I don't know. I'm not great at predicting where things are going to go strategically, but I think that challenge wise, I'm annoyed that they voted me out, because I was like a really good person in challenges. But I guess I see why it happened. That didn't really matter at that point. I'm surprised that they were able to win another immunity. Like I don't know. I don't think they're very good in challenges, so I'm surprised that they were able to win that. Um,
It was by the skin of their teeth, mind you.
yeah.
yeah. What else did you say? I forget. You had another question you asked that I had an answer ready
I'm
for, and then I forgot.
How do you see them moving forward? Do you see them as like a tribe that you think could work together? Do you see them kind of falling apart, or like that kind of thing?
Yeah. Yeah, again, that's hard for me to predict, but from what I know, I mean, I think that there's definitely it seems like there's a pretty tight group there. I don't think Royals or Lily are long for the game because it seems like they're on the bottom. And also Henry seems like he's kind of not in a great spot, but those kind of core people, like it seems like Daniel and Nelson and Shay are all in a really good spot. It seems like they get along, which I probably should have expected that again, like I think there's a lot of things that kind of went over my head in terms like I should have known that like on a tribe with Day and all these people like there's no way they were that inactive as I thought they were. But I don't know, I could see from I mean I haven't been spectating super closely, but ever since I got voted out, but I could see Daniel Nelson and Shay going far together, assuming they still are cool. But overall, I don't think everyone on that tribe is going to stick together at all. I think that they have people that are on the outs that are either going to flip or they're going to get rid of or whatnot.
Just as a point of reference, too, Lily and Royals have been in the strikes game. Like people are picking them quite often, so that might have something to do with them being kind of a little bit on the outs on that tribe as well. They're just not very active right now.
Yeah.
And it does feel kind of
Yeah, and I
wild.
also remember. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it feels wild. We've seen just in the episode that's going on currently uh, that they're finding it hard to get Royal to react to things, and a lot of things have gone to randomizer in the past. So it does seem strange looking back that ultimately, I think if they had the option at this point, they'd probably swap you guys out. I mean, like that's not me. I'm not able to comment on that in the sense that knowing what they're actually thinking, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was a bit of that sentiment there at the minute.
Yeah. I also remember Floyd. You asked how I feel about my game, which that's
Yes.
kind of a tough question to answer. But like overall, I guess I mean I'm not pleased with the outcome. I don't think I deserved to go home. I don't think I really did anything wrong. But by that same token, like I'm okay with it because though of course I don't think there's ever a time where someone is voted out and they're not at fault in the slightest. There were many things I could have done better and things I should have picked up on, even if it was very subtle. But by that token, I'm okay with it. I mean, what could I did my best. I did what I went by what I knew about Survivor. I wouldn't change the way I played, I guess, in terms of how I feel. I think I did what I should have done, and it just didn't work out for me.
And just based on how you mentioned that, like it sounds like even though you feel sort of good about where you were or how you were playing and you're comfortable with your game, you I like the fact that you're able to see that there's some learning that you could have done. Like everybody's got to learn sometime. And
Hmm.
I'm happy that you're able to feel okay with it because what's the sense of being upset if you did everything you could and it didn't work?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of like what I said. I think that there were things I could have done better, things I could have think, but also a lot of things that were out of my control. And I think that's kind of been what's helped me get over it, in
Yeah.
a way and be less upset about it. Like it's like I'm not really. I guess kind of the way it is I'm more upset when I lose at something and it's my fault as opposed to somebody else's, as opposed to it being out of my hands, which I think that's just how it generally is with people. But that fact makes it easier to swallow and easier to get over, knowing that there wasn't too much I could have done better. Like if I had made a really stupid mistake, it would be a lot. Going out this early would be a lot harder than it is just with these circumstances.
I think that's a very fair point. As you say, I think the only thing you could have really done differently was just kind of push harder with people and kind of have maybe like more involved conversations on the strategy side of things. But it's just as easy to see that going the other way. So, like you said, it's sometimes harder pill to swallow if you actively do something and that like kind of bites you in the ass. So if you did that and got sent out, that probably might have made you feel worse. So it's hard to know which way is going to be the way things are going to fall, and unfortunately this way it just kind of fell the way that it did.
Yeah.
So like you say, some things were out of your hands, and it is a shame, but
The whole
what's
thing was kind of a catch 22 because like the reason that I didn't strategized hard is because I thought that because I thought that nobody else was strategizing hard, and I didn't want to be seen as overplaying. So like it was kind of an unsolvable issue, or it kind of the issue. What's the word? It fed into itself, I guess.
Like a self-fulfilling
Right. It was
prophecy.
a complete circle. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I appreciate you you giving us, talking to us about this stuff, and you seem like you're at least in an okay spot with it after a couple of days, and I definitely appreciate being able to throw 6 Beck references into this conversation.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been so fun speaking with you. Oh, thanks for joining us. Anything you want to plug? I know you've got an org you're running at the minute.
Yeah, I have an org, Gloomorg 2. We're at the final four right now, so not too much game left to be had. But if you want to come in, I've posted the link in the advertisements. If you want to come in and watch, we'd love to have you. Also, next season, Nico is going to be helping us on production along with a lot of other people for the next season. We have some really fun stuff planned. So if you want to come by and watch the end, maybe apply for next season or stick around and watch, I'd love to have you. Whoever's out
When
there listening.
when do you think next season will start for those who might be
Uh,
interested?
we're going to be starting August 27th.
Awesome.
So that's a sort of a podcast exclusive. So there you go, everyone. Finding out I'm on prod as well. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Looking forward to joining the team. And yeah, it's been great speaking with you. Any sort of final thoughts before we let you off?
Go Sarah.
Right. Great. So
All right. Thank you.
thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you so much.
All right. We'll catch you for the next one. Bye bye now.
See you
Bye.
guys.